let's do an episode and be optimistic about it.
Oh, poor Lalo, you.
Yes, so what we're dealing with today?
I don't know, you suggested the topic, so today we are going to talk about, let's say, the path to becoming a good DevOps engineer. That's what you suggested. Sounds
Okay.
good. We're going to talk about some of the key, let's say, qualities and skills that are required. Yasmin is going to show a cool website as well that might offer really good guidance in terms of the path and various twists and turns that might take. We're going to emphasize the value of continuous learning for the path of becoming the, let's say, quality DevOps engineer. This is something that's very popular nowadays and should be, let's say, somewhat of a career that should help bridge the gap between the development and operations teams. But oftentimes that ends in blood, sweat, and tears. It is what it is. We will discuss, let's say, stuff related to various platforms, languages, configuration management tools, a little bit of story of cloud probably as well, because that fits well there. To kind of help develop, let's say, some kind of a DevOps mindset. And we hope that this is going to bring some additional value to our listeners if they are looking for a path towards becoming DevOps. So with that being said, welcome to the That IT Show, where talk meets tech and vice versa. And let's roll the intro. What's up, dude?
Okay, so are we recording? We are. Everything is working, hopefully.
Did you really think that it's not going to work?
To be completely honest, we didn't make a mistake of not recording a single episode. This is some of the things that we are missing. We forgot to
Include non-working functions.
No, we forgot to forget recording.
Forget to forget.
We forgot to forget. Then let's go and let's learn about DevOps engineering. The reason why I even suggested this was that I was reading something, and since Reddit is becoming a problem these days, because the new management of Reddit is trying to basically squeeze the money out of the community.
Not pay the moderators and actors if they are just non-existent and unimportant.
No, just trying to get the API more expensive, and by more expensive I mean the others make it more expensive. So basically they're killing all the third-party apps.
That sounds familiar.
That sounds familiar, yes, because the Sync guy did this with Twitter. And but his idea, because Twitter already did this a couple of years ago, the idea is that if you are not controlling the third-party applications, what you're missing is that you cannot push ads, you cannot push different things inside your app because the third-party developers can avoid them. And they want to first establish the only application available for the Reddit, and then they're going to push up ads, they're going to push their own topics and so on, because they then control the UI for the user. But anyways, this is not what I was talking about. The reason why I switched to how difficult it is to become a DevOps guy or dev guy or ops guy.
A good one.
Today I'm just going to be satisfied with becoming a DevOps guy. So the guy who actually understands how to do the operations, how to do the sysadmin job, and how to do it well. Because I wouldn't call DevOps guys good ones and bad ones. A bad DevOps guy is usually a guy who gets fired. Because in DevOps, people can pretty quickly understand that you are not up to the task.
Yeah, that's definitely
Once
true.
you lose your first backup and you lose your first files, you're going to be toast. And it's not that we were talking about backup just before the show.
Of course not.
But there was a saying that I saw somewhere in Reddit is that you cannot get fired for having too many backups.
Okay.
but you can get fired for not getting a backup. So this is one of those things. And then I realized that why I was thinking on Reddit and then came up with DevOps is because a lot of questions in the sysadmin subreddit on Reddit and in a lot of other places is how do I become a quote marks DevOps or engineer or operations or sysop or sysadmin or whatever.
Or the even more crude abbreviations like DevSecOps, DevSpecOps, Dev this, Dev that.
Full stack operations manager, extreme operations manager, and so on and so on and so on. But anyways, and then it got me thinking because I went to the internet and then found a couple of versions of the roadmaps, because it seems that everybody and their friends drew a roadmap how to become a DevOps engineer.
You went to the internet?
Yes, I had
that sounds so Jeremy Clarkson.
I had to. This is the only way to solve it. The AI couldn't help me there.
Yes,
so,
it could.
I didn't try.
Okay, I did.
Okay, but I'm not intelligent enough today to use the artificial intelligence or any intelligence at all. So I just did the normal Googling, and the thing that stood out is that all the people who are doing the roadmaps, different roadmaps, are basically sticking to either one of the two modes of becoming a DevOps guy. Mm-hmm. First is that they're pushing guys who are already developers into becoming operations. So basically, they're trying to create somebody who is going to be in charge of infrastructure out of somebody who was previously designing applications.
Okay.
And the other thing is they just dump everything and anything that they saw along the line of basically the entire IT. Mm-hmm. And then they say, okay, this is what the DevOps guys should be doing. So let's go through this and let's try to get what's important, what's not important. Let's see what are different things that we need to see and what people should be actually doing, and what are the things that people shouldn't be starting with. Okay. Because my primary idea was to do today's episode from the standpoint of somebody who has the enthusiasm but doesn't have the knowledge.
Okay.
And these are the guys who usually give up quickly because once you see
the level of complexity.
Not only the level of complexity, but also when you see something, when you see a roadmap that looks like something like this. I'm going to get back to this site, but when you take a look at something, let me just close this head. So when you take a look at something like this, and then somebody says keep learning after this, and you realize that this is going to be at least 3 or 4 years of your life, mm-hmm. You tend to give up. And this is one of those things.
But yeah, I understand.
Yes, and this is one of those things that we need to quickly get out in the open and try to explain to people, because this basically is completely true. Yeah. But at the same time, this is not an incremental thing. This is a thing that you need to learn piece by piece, but not each piece it's in its entirety. So, for example, mm-hmm. when it says that you need to learn operating systems, it doesn't mean that you need to learn the operating systems to the level where when you are able to program the kernel. You need to be able to get acquainted with the systems, and then the rest of the knowledge is going to come later.
Okay.
So this is one of those things. So.
Continuous piecemeal learning.
Continuous learning is something we already do, and I think that this is probably you just did a blind hand and getting the corn. Basically, continuous learning is the only thing that makes sense. Whatever we are doing and whatever we are talking, do we talk about developers? Do we talk about ops? Do we talk about whatever it is called? I don't know, DBA or whatever. Mm-hmm. I think that the only thing that matters is your own will to be better, mm-hmm. and continuous engagement in the field that you want to be better in. Mm-hmm. And it could be playing with different applications. It could be creating a home lab. It could be working at the job that is going to make you do different things. It could be experimenting with in sandboxes. It could be that you are just decided that you are going to learn something new. You're going to learn it from YouTube. You're going to learn it from the GitHub projects. You're going to learn it from, I don't know, Udemy labs and Udemy lessons. But the idea is to keep learning. The idea is to constantly keep pushing yourself and learning new things.
I have a question. Do you think that this is achievable if you don't have the bug?
The bug meaning money?
The bug.
Oh, the bug. The neck.
No, not the neck. The neck. I know what you wanted to say, but if you don't have the bug for this, if it doesn't itch you, if you are not very interested in it, let's say, what is the difference of a DevOps guy who is after it only for the money versus the guy who is really interested in that?
I think that guy who is really interested in that is going to quickly go up the ranks, and the guy who's interested in the money is probably going to get stuck somewhere along the lines, and nobody's going to push him up.
And grow a beard.
Yes, he's going to grow a beard, get his own glasses. Glasses are going to have the short piece of string that so that you don't forget him, and so on. And so he's going to grow old and become an old, cynical system engineer.
You do realize that sounds awfully familiar.
Yes. This is why I'm explaining.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but anyways, it's just that either you have what it takes, or you can force it. But let's, for starters, let's say that we are dealing with somebody who has the drive.
Okay.
He doesn't have the bug. He has the drive.
Okay.
He wants to learn something new, and he
Or
doesn't
she.
think, or she, or them, and he doesn't think that being somebody who is going to get involved in networking is something that is beyond him.
Okay.
I'm intentionally mentioning networking because usually the networking is the part that always bugs people, because networking is considered by people who don't know networking as something easy and boring.
Okay.
And then
And it is and it isn't
and
at
I
the
think,
same time.
No, I think that it is not easy and not boring, but I think that from people who consider it easy and boring, this is usually where all the problems lie.
Oh, yes.
Either that or DNS.
Yeah, it's always DNS, as we all probably.
Yes, but sometimes it's DNS because you just cannot get to it because the gateway is not configured correctly.
Our boss is asking me for a meeting on Tuesday, so I'm just adding something to the calendar.
Yes,
But don't
yes.
feel stopped. I completely agree with you, so that's perfectly okay. I would actually kind of like, maybe we can tie that in with the topic that we're discussing with our story and our way towards that as well. In a sense, maybe it will be helpful, or maybe not. I don't know. I think
that
the story is helpful.
Yes, the story is helpful, but let's quickly go through.
I mean, not right now, but generally speaking.
Yeah, generally speaking, yes. But let's just try to be, since this one is organized, let's try to be organized a little bit in this episode.
No
and
problem.
Let's try to push it one by one with what the roadmap says. So the site that I'm showing is roadmap.sh. What it is it's a site that is trying to create something worthwhile. So different roadmaps for different skills, developers, guides, and so on. So the idea is that they are trying to create a repository of what do you need to learn to become a front-end developer, back-end developer, DevOps, QA, database, software architect, security, computer science, and so on and so on and so on and so on. There is a lot of things here. Today, I'm interested only in DevOps because I want to show what DevOps roadmap looks like. But take a look at the site, because site is amazing if you want to quickly see how far did you go into the field and what do you still need to learn and what do you need to start on. Because
can I make a small editorial request?
Yes.
Scroll through the page slower. That's the only thing. That's an editorial request.
I'm going to go through each one of the topics, so this is going to be a long one.
Okay.
So
I have no place to be.
the only thing that I also wanted to say is that there are different versions of this on different GitHubs. So if you want to find a roadmap that is going to be interesting to you, you can either try roadmap.sh, or you can just go to GitHub and try to search for roadmaps, because there is a lot of things that are here that are either interconnected or derivative work one from the other. So, for example, it says here, learn one programming language. In the roadmaps, it says learn the programming language. So obviously, the first thing is to learn the programming language from their standpoint. And I think
Yes, because DevOps can be actually kind of like looked into from two different perspectives. Two main different perspectives, from the programming and the sys engineer standpoint, in a sense.
But let's start from the history lesson. When those bearded guys needed to create Unix, they had to create C, and there was a reason for this.
Okay.
And I think that learning a programming language and learning operating systems is something that is basically interconnected so much that you cannot learn one separate from the other.
Agreed.
So you need to learn how a programming language works. You need to learn how to code, at least in one scripting language, and then in one structured language that can be functional or whatever, object oriented or whatever. You cannot program. You cannot create a program on a given system without understanding how the system works, and also you cannot.
You can Stack Overflow.
You can use the Copilot, and you can use the whatever the AI equivalent of this is right now. But if you don't understand what you're trying to program for, and how, you cannot do the how to program. And if you don't know how to program, you cannot understand how to program for something. So if you're trying to create Windows application, you should at least know how Windows looks, how it behaves under the hood, and have a decent knowledge of logging, debugging, and working with the operating system.
Okay.
The same goes with the Linux, or FreeBSD, or OpenBSD, or whatever the flavor is.
Okay.
Because you need it in order to be able to program.
Okay.
You cannot convince me that somebody who doesn't understand how logging works in the operating system is able to do any decent programming on the operating system.
Agreed.
Okay, it could be when it comes to web, but they're going to run into a problem as soon as something breaks on the web server.
Agreed. Okay, so that's the first two. Let's say learn a programming language and then operating system.
Operating system, yes. And then it says learn to live in terminal.
There we go. Welcome home.
Yes, and I'm not on board with this.
I agree.
Because learning to live in terminal is trying to make people love the terminal if they are not even ready for it. The terminal is going to come
later,
or
if it comes.
later, but yes, it is going to come in later, because you are going to do something in Python. Python is pretty. If you want to do something by using graphical interface in Python, you are not going to have a good time. You're going to be needing to run things in terminal. You're going to be running something in command line, whatever the command line is. You're going to be using pip. You're going to be using different functions in order to separate the environments and so on and so on. So the terminal is something that is going to inevitably happen to you.
Okay.
But I wouldn't push people into running the terminal. Especially I wouldn't push people into, you have to learn, I don't know, Vim, Nano, or Emacs. You need to learn an editor because you're going to need it, but whatever editor helps you to...
whichever.
So, also, base scripting in PowerShell. Okay, but scripting as such is part of the system. You are going to be needing it, but you shouldn't be pushing for it. This is part of the living in the terminal.
Okay.
So, I wouldn't say that people need to learn to live in terminal. They need to understand how the terminal works, and this is going to grow on them.
Okay.
Version control system is something that I'm completely for.
Yes.
But I don't think that they're necessary when you are trying to do the DevOps. You are also going to learn about them. I'm not entirely on board with just using Git. There are other version control systems that are on the market that you should be aware of.
You are obviously a CVS guy.
No, I'm basically a perforce guy.
Yeah, I know.
But there are other things that you need to be aware of because they have their own advantages, disadvantages, and so on.
Okay.
Hosting is something that I wouldn't even mention as a separate thing because when you're dealing with the version control system, of course, it is going to exist somewhere. So I think that what is and how to set up whatever. So the next step in this roadmap is important because this is going to show you how to host your own version control system. Other than this, trying to learn how VCS hosting works, it's completely pointless, I think.
Okay.
Because you are going to buy, first you're going to buy an account on GitHub or use a free account on GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket or wherever, and you're not going to learn how it is hosted and how it runs in the backend. You're going to be using it to do your own source control, and then after a few weeks, months, years, whatever, you are going to be wanting to do something on your own. But learning VCS hosting doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Okay, so then web servers and different things inside the operating system. I consider these parts of the operating system.
I consider this to be completely in the wrong place.
Yes, this is completely in the wrong place, and
Because this basically, to kind of expand on what I want to say. So far, I'm with this roadmap, and it's really good. But reverse proxy, forward proxy, firewall, basically we're starting to go into the area of load balancing. Load balancing is not something that should be something that you learn at the beginning of the process. It's completely pointless.
Yes, and I think that this one goes under other services. So basically, he didn't know how to bridge stuff between learning an operating system, single user operating system, and basics, and then going to containers. So he decided he's going to put everything into one large bucket, and I'm intentionally mentioning bucket here.
Yeah.
So he just said, okay, web servers, reverse proxy, and load balancer, and so on, because these are different technologies. For example, what I would say is that there is a thing way down here that mentions FTP, DNS, HTTPS, and so on. DNS should be somewhere in the start. Networking should be somewhere in the start. I think the networking protocols that you learn after you learn how to use a load balancer don't make any sense.
There is a reason why those things are in this place. Because this is explained, this DevOps methodology is explained from the perspective of a programmer.
Yes.
That's the reason why.
But even...
Nothing against that, just mentioning.
Even taking that into account, how can you do containers and Dockers without understanding how networking works?
You can't.
So learning containers, learning load balancers, caching service, and reverse proxy before you know how DNS and the HTTPS works, sorry.
Pretty pointless.
Sorry.
Why are we going to do reverse proxy for proxy, basically load balancing, if you don't know how SSL and TLS works? It's a basic, like 101 part of the service that's load balancer.
And the other thing, SSH. Learning to live in a terminal without SSH. No.
Yeah.
No go.
I understand.
Completely no go. Especially if you take into account that in the middle is cloud providers. So basically it says that you need to learn AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure before you know
DigitalOcean, yeah.
Yes, before you know how DNS works.
Awesome.
I think that this is supposed to mean that you are able to swipe your credit card and buy DigitalOcean droplets or however they're called, and completely not understand anything about them. So I think this is just mentioning it because somebody is going to mention it. So you should be trying to use this. But if I actually wanted to learn something, I would put cloud providers way lower, because everything up to this point to the cloud providers is something that you can completely simulate at your own home. You can do if you are a complete noob, you can do a VirtualBox, heaven forbid, but you can do it. You can use a decent virtualization tool. I'm getting
you have
ready.
a workstation?
No, I'm getting ready to say Hyper-V. So I needed to do a special place and say even Hyper-V is better.
In a
than
safe
virtual,
space.
Yes, even Hyper-V is better than VirtualBox. Or you can do a VMware. You can do whatever makes you feel happy. and then you can go and build upon your knowledge about operating systems, containers, and everything else. Try a few things, because you are going to be meeting sort of kind of containers and Dockers even before you start everything here, because you're going to be dealing with snaps, you're going to be dealing with packages, you're going to be dealing with things in terminal that are going to basically
images, layers,
yes,
blah blah blah.
so
Yes.
that they're basically going to be containers.
Okay.
So and then
containers, Docker and Podman, LXC, not really.
the containers, Docker and LXC, I wouldn't LXC. I wouldn't even mention.
Nobody
LXC.
uses that anymore.
It is out there with the kernel, so
Yeah,
people think that it is important.
It's not.
Okay. Then cloud providers: Alibaba Cloud, Linode, Heroku, Vultr. Okay, but as I said, not here. I would do networking security and protocols before.
I would do networking and security way before, but yeah.
I would probably do networking security and protocols immediately after I start operating systems, because this is something that everything is.
That's a good flow.
Yes, because performance monitoring and networking tools in terminal without understanding networking don't make any sense. And then it goes to things that are getting specialized. And this is the thing that I just wanted to quickly mention. Email, for example, is something that is as complicated or even more complicated than, let's say, containers.
So is DNS.
And DNS.
So is SSL.
So I think that this is just becoming, or cloud providing for that matter, it's a subspecialization in the DevOps field.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that everybody needs to learn how email works. I don't think that domain keys, DMARC, SPF, and so on is something that everybody needs to know.
Okay.
They need to know that it exists. They need to know what the idea behind it is. But learning how to use it and configure it, it's something that is completely out of scope for a normal DevOps guy. I know that a lot of people think that they are able to configure the email, but
Yes.
but
No.
I wouldn't, after whatever years I'm doing this, I wouldn't consider myself able to configure and run an email service that is decent and that is going to be dependable, secure. I would much rather like to pay either Microsoft or Google or whatever for them to take care of the email. It's an inevitability. It's a sad thing. And I think that what Microsoft and Google did to the email is extremely sad and extremely complicated. But at the same time, they're basically the providers that divided the email service between them. And you can try to exist outside of their services, but it is not going to work out.
It will for a lot of people, but yeah, the gist of the users is still there.
Yes,
you're correct.
So, and then serverless. Okay, serverless is specifically targeted towards developers. And this is something that a normal DevOps guy probably wouldn't be interested in. They should know how different functions work and what the idea is, but expecting from a DevOps guy to be able to run AVS Lambda queries is something that I wouldn't expect.
Or Azure functions.
Okay, I would just say, he should be aware of those, but if he's not doing actual development, operations, no. Infrastructure provisioning and configuration management is something that is definitely a thing that DevOps guys should know. So Ansible, Chef, Puppet, or whatever, or Terraform and AVS CDK, these are some things that I would expect to be much more prominent in what we are dealing with here. Because Ansible, Chef, Puppet, and all the other configuration manager tools basically interconnect with the learning and programming language and learning how to do the scripting. And then, for some reason, CI/CD tools come into play. I have no idea why. Okay, if you need
I'm shutting up.
I know what the idea behind this is. If you are part of the team, and up to this point you have done infrastructure provisioning, you understand how to deal with infrastructure, you understand how to deal with the serverless functions and so on. What you can do then is probably you're going to become a build engineer. because you are going to push yourself to be that part of the team that is in charge of pushing new builds and creating new builds. It makes sense to learn Jenkins or GitLab or whatever, but I wouldn't call it a thing that normal DevOps guys should be doing. It is a specialized thing, the same as with email.
I think that CI/CD, if we're talking about CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment development, whatever you want to call it, I think that needs to be a little demystified a little bit, because people often misconstrue what CI/CD is, and there are a lot of fights that come from the lack of understanding how CI/CD should work, not how it usually works in companies. Because there is a reason why we use different tools for different stages of the pipeline. And also with that come people's roles.
Yes, and the other thing is that usually people who are completely out of it, by out of it I mean not entirely sure what they're doing, are taking over roles because they think that they know about them, especially in the CI/CD work, CI/CD space, because they think that if they know how to build an application on a single computer, usually theirs, that they are able to create a build system that is going to cover, I don't know, 20 builders, 200 builders, 2,000 builders or so. And this quickly becomes a problem because the problems multiply.
A side note to this.
Yes.
And you're going to recognize this. And one of our students, if he is listening to the podcast, will also recognize this. Hence the reason why I insisted with our students that they should learn some stuff related to statistics.
Yes.
Without that, there is no scaling. Forget about it. I mean, scaling as it should be done versus scaling, oh, I can do it.
I think that scaling as it is usually done, so we can do it, is something that is going to work in a small team. And I have been burned a couple of times when I got it was basically a request, so a feature request from a team that requested me to do something in terms of scaling, and they completely missed the point of the single builder. They missed the point of what they're doing, and so the entire system was completely not working. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's just the system that we created wasn't working, simply because we didn't understand the inputs. And if you misconfigure the inputs, you are going to get completely garbage output.
Oh, really? That sounds oddly logical.
Sometimes, unfortunately,
but figuratively and literally.
But unfortunately, in the IT, I learned that sometimes it could happen that you are dealing with a system, and then sometimes by blind luck, you somehow manage to create a system that looks like it works. And then you think that your inputs are okay.
Yes.
And unfortunately, this can happen.
And actually, the law of big numbers kind of like plays as your friend here until it rears its ugly end, and then everything crashes.
And this is where I dislike the cloud immensely.
Yes.
Because the cloud can cover your ass in a couple of ways by masking the problems that you have, by enabling you to scale when you shouldn't be scaling up, because you have the resources that you shouldn't be using, but you have them, so you're using them, so everything works. And then suddenly you realize that you are basically wasting money. But this is just a thing.
Okay.
Then secret management is oddly somewhere in the middle. I would say
it needs to be before CI/CD.
I think that it needs to be just after the terminal. Because if you are dealing with a team, if you're dealing with infrastructure provisioning, you should be able to at least use a password vault or some other system.
Cloud vaults or Ansible vault or whatever it is.
So some other system to enable you to be on the safe side, at least with your passwords and keys. So this is one of the things. Infrastructure monitoring, also a huge topic.
Oh, yes.
And the huge topic that I would probably want people to learn as soon as they learn networking. Because
I don't. And I'm going to explain to you why. I think you're wrong there. If you can hang on for a second. This problem comes from a lot of the experiences that I have with design of IT systems.
Okay.
Because people almost always approach the idea of design of IT systems in the wrong way. The correct approach to designing an IT system is first to look at the applications that you're running in your IT system and then fit that to hardware. So it's a kind of like a two-way process at the beginning.
Okay.
That's the first stage. That's why last year alone I did 2 or 3 big migrations from system A to system B, and I had to design the system B and kind of like go through the process that I'm describing. You have to first create an inventory of stuff. We talked about this in multiple episodes. You need to actually write down, let's say that we are talking about virtual machines for a second.
Yes.
I need to not know the names of the VMs. I don't care about the VM names. I care about the apps running in them, because it's different if it's a domain controller versus a SQL server versus a web application versus a file server and whatnot. I need to have a detailed list inventory of the services running on all of the VMs. Reason for that is because in the next stage of the design, prior to actually migrating to something or moving towards the idea of finalized design, I want to map that out to correct underpinnings. So hardware, servers, SSDs, networks, whatnots. The reason why that is important is because you want to standardize, because some applications prefer, I'm oversimplifying really now, some apps prefer memory, like databases, transaction systems. Some of them prefer CPUs, like compiler-related stuff, whatnot, builders, whatever you want to call them. And all of that I just described, all of that ties in directly to the management in terms of the infrastructure monitoring and application monitoring afterwards, because you have to know a great detail about all of the apps running so that you can monitor them, which is the next step in the process. But the same thing applies to infrastructure.
Yes, and this is but we are completely on the same side. I think that
in my experience, what you should be doing is always couple infrastructure monitoring, application monitoring with the design process.
Yes, but when we are learning, I think that you should be learning how to monitor things as soon as you know how the networking works.
I agree.
Because you need the baseline.
Yeah.
Whatever you said right now is completely correct, but I'm not trusting an overview of a system that says that this is a DC. I want to know how this DC behaves before I port it to somewhere
History
else.
data is important.
So I need to have a baseline on the
performance security side.
But on the system that is running idle, I want the performance during the day. I want to see what the patterns are of the traffic and the network and so on. So I think the infrastructure monitoring plays much bigger deal. Even before you start to do the cloud providers hosting and so on, because how can you run containers?
It is the most important thing on the overall slide: infrastructure and app monitoring. Trust me on that one from enterprise perspective.
So how can you say how I'm going to create a load balancer if you don't know what your traffic is going to look like?
Yeah,
because it is just simply something you can then just guess basically. Okay, so infrastructure monitoring, I think it's too late in the roadmap.
It is, and app monitoring is completely
application monitoring also.
There is a reason why some of these things that you can see on the slide, New Relic, App Dynamics, some of them were recently bought from various big companies, etc. I worked with both of these.
And I think that one of the things that I see here is that also, as we said, developer perspective, using something like a Datadog is going to turn you into your perspective is going to be, I need to implement this. There is an implementation guide, and then you don't need to know anything. Datadog is going to do the number crunching for you, and they're going to do the recommendations for you. So Datadog is an amazing thing, but it is expensive, and it hides a lot of things from you if you don't know where to look for the different things.
Hence what I said, some of the things that this outline or this kind of like timeline discusses, some of the things that are mentioned here are on the wrong place. Reason being that a lot of these things stem from the design.
Yes.
And design can solve a lot of these problems from the get-go. That's my point.
Also, putting Elasticstack, Loki, Greylog, and log management after infrastructure monitoring is also completely out.
That needs to be in the infrastructure part at the beginning.
And this is something that we can fight over, but I'm not going to say that you can deal with the Grafana or Zabbix before you know how to deal with the logs. Because
yes.
how are you going to graph a log that you don't have?
Yeah, correct.
And the other thing is that I just wanted to mention something about the Datadog and the different commercial applications. I think for me, it's like you having a water pipe in your backyard, breaking it in half, letting the water flow, and then installing an enormously complex high-tech flow meter that is going to tell you how much money you are losing every day.
Exactly.
And you know the data, but you absolutely have no idea why are you losing money.
Correct.
You know what is happening, but you have no way of trying to fix it. So I think that this is one of those things. Then continuous orchestration. Okay, we can talk about this because we have come to the end. So now whatever has been left is being dealt with here. Artifact management. Okay. GitOps. Okay, I would put this with the continuous delivery up there before. So I would go there with the rest of the guys. Service mesh. Okay, but if you have reached
super important and completely in the wrong place.
Yes, because if you reach this part of the
if you actually go all this far, you're way behind.
You are a little bit behind. This is one thing, and the other thing is that, and this is the most thing, the important, completely confusing for me. For me, is cloud design patterns. How can you talk about availability, data management, design, implementation, management, and monitoring before? After you went through infrastructure provisioning? How can you provision infrastructure if you don't know what you're provisioning?
Well, the timeline doesn't have to go linearly forward. Maybe time goes backwards or in loops.
So what I want to say is, this is quite a long rant by me about this roadmap. Is that I like this roadmap. Because it has enormous amount of information on it.
Yeah.
You can click on it. You can see what the different things are. So it is going to tell you where the site is. It's going to tell you what the
person who did this.
Yes, absolutely kudos. It's a joint effort. I would say, I would just say that this is completely okay, but I wouldn't go in this order. Mm-hmm. This is the first thing, and the other thing is that I would probably start from my actual perspective where I'm working at. So if I'm doing a home lab, I'm probably going to be first dealing with the networking, dealing with the operating system, infrastructure, and so on. If I have to work, or if I have work somewhere and need to quickly become infrastructure provisioning technician, I would probably go from the middle. I would probably go and skip over the things because I need things.
That's such an excellent point, which I discuss on my classes a lot.
Because this is a structured way of learning from zero. Not exactly from zero. It's a structured way of learning for somebody who already knows how to develop things. But this is not good enough for people who actually need to do work. Mm-hmm. If you want to be an ops guy, you need to be able to understand which things to skip over. So, for example, serverless. Mm-hmm. Serverless is important for some teams.
Completely pointless for a lot of teams.
A lot of teams, and I have seen a lot of teams that don't even know what serverless is.
Correct.
And for example,
don't need that or ever will.
And pushing some technologies for the technology's sake is one of the worst things that I have seen in the DevOps world. So pushing for, we need to move to the cloud because the cloud exists. So
thank you. Welcome to the end of the thought process of cloud when you become the cloud realist. But I'm not saying that you aren't. I'm just saying
yes, but you're always talking about me like I like or dislike cloud depending on what I'm saying. But cloud is just one of the tools.
I'm just giving a general blanket statement that has nothing to do with you.
Yes, but I'm completely fine. It has to do with me because I have a love-hate relationship with cloud.
Me too.
I think that cloud is immensely useful for some of the things.
Mm-hmm. And at the same time, pointless for everything else.
Not only completely pointless, sometimes it's extremely dangerous for some of the things.
Agreed.
And one of the biggest reasons is what I already said today. cloud can help you hide your problems in such a way that you're losing money, but have no problems. And then suddenly, when you realize what is happening, you realized how much money you lost
And
for
all hell
no
breaks
particular
loose.
reason, and all hell breaks loose because you are probably not going to be the guy who is going to notice it. Somebody from outside is going to do a revision of your work and then say, okay, but why are we paying $25,000 per month for X service? And then this is going to get audited, and then somebody is going to say, okay, but we have been doing this for the last 2 years. And then you're going to be on your merry way to talk to the HR and to try to explain what you're doing in the company.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
Did you notice that over the course of the past 40-ish whatever minutes,
Yes.
you'll be talking for the 30 or 35 of them, and I've been pretty tame.
Yes.
Okay, can I say something now?
Yes.
And can I be a little bit, it's going to sound like technical marketing a little bit, but it's not. It's a firm belief based on my huge experience with the product.
Okay.
Okay. What's missing here?
VMware.
Yes.
Yes. And I think that one of the things that is always missing from the roadmaps here, or whatever roadmaps is that fundamental technologies that are working are usually not mentioned. But
I'm glad that you noticed
But
this.
the technology of the day, be it Node.js, be it whatever today is being used by developers, is usually being mentioned. Because they like to, or people like to mention the thing that they're most fluent with. Because if you, did you see what else is missing here? It is not that VMware is missing. The entire virtualization is missing.
Yeah, I didn't see OpenShift as well.
No. There is no. There is a mention of.
There's a reason why I mentioned VMware. I'm going to come back to
There
this
is Docker
later.
Swarm and Kubernetes here, but there is no a single mention of virtualization. So nobody's mentioning anything about virtualization. The first thing that comes that is remotely connected to virtualization is containers, and then it's just Docker. And this is missing, I think, 30 or 40% of today's architecture architecture and story in the IT. So all the roadmaps, I think they're scared of mentioning different things that you need to know because they think that you're going to be overwhelmed.
Okay.
But there is no way to create a roadmap for the entire DevOps without overwhelming people.
Okay. Can I
Yes.
now continue for a
Yes.
second? And I know that both you and my students and a lot of people have oftentimes called me a VMware fanboy.
Zealot?
Whatever. Not zealot, but fanboy. I'm way too rational to be a fanboy of anything. Well, that's my personal statement. And there is a reason why I mentioned that they're missing. Obviously, you noticed it as well. Reason being that when you go to this complete roadmap, everything that's infrastructure based on the roadmap, VMware has the perfect solution for it. That's my point. They have the best integrated load balancer, the best north, south, and east, west firewall. They have spectacularly good application for UI management of Kubernetes wherever it is, cloud, local, whichever cloud, whatever. They have the best virtualization technology on the market. They have excellent configuration management and operations tools, Orchestrator, for example. They have superb infrastructure and application monitoring to anything on the market. All of these things that are on the slide are good, but nowhere near as good. They have pretty good log management solution as well, which is not as good as, for example, Splunk, but Splunk is supremely expensive. The best, but still very expensive. They can, and the NSX has the networking, security, and the service mesh component, and many other things that are very important, specifically for all of this that we discussed. And I'm not saying that as a fanboy, because if we want to be rational here, I mean, sorry, but AWS is mentioned, GCP is mentioned, Azure is mentioned, Kubernetes is mentioned.
So it's but DigitalOcean is mentioned.
DigitalOcean.
This becomes a little bit silly.
Yeah, it's a little bit humorous.
Oh, okay,
but I didn't want to go there and say it like that. But you're completely correct.
Also, let's talk about one of these. There are two elephants in the room that need to be mentioned. One is Oracle, because Oracle. It should be here because it is bigger than some of those cloud providers.
Hell of a lot bigger.
Yes. The other thing that is missing is databases.
Yes.
So you're supposed to be dealing with things without actually dealing with databases here.
Yes.
And do you see what else is missing?
Storage.
Yes.
Storage is missing. Yeah, I know. I noticed that all, but I didn't want to go too deeply into that because that's a whole other
roadmap.
No, not only roadmap. That's a complete other stack of additional 20 topics that you need to cover.
Yes, but my problem is that when people are dealing with when we are dealing with roadmaps like this, so this is a easy version, so it should be helping you. I think this shouldn't be called a roadmap to becoming a DevOps guy. I think this should be called a roadmap to becoming a beginner or a junior position developer.
Exactly.
And this is basically a primer, especially the simpler version of this. This is essentially a primer on how to be able to survive in the modern infrastructure world. But if you're learning a programming language, okay, fine. You're learning Linux, okay, fine. You're learning networking, okay, fine. Docker, fine. Git, okay. But how are you going to create a replication without using storage and databases?
You can do it without storage. That's not impossible today, but still, you're completely correct.
But LAMP is based on having that M inside the
MySQL.
I
know. No, actually, I could go worse. Where is the backup and where is disaster recovery?
If you don't mind the storage, you don't care about the backups, so that's okay.
Because you started with backup, so...
Yes, but okay, if you want to go into details, a lot of things are missing also because you are missing when it comes to the detailed version. When it comes to detailed version, there is this thing when it deals with load balancing, caching server, and so on. But if you're dealing with load balancers, you need to deal with multiple machines. Then you're dealing with
orchestration.
You are dealing with orchestration. You're also dealing with clusters, and this is not mentioned in any way or form.
When I reacted to the load balancers being so high on the stack, I understand why they are there. I mentioned it earlier.
Yes,
it's
for developer, I think yes.
But my point is this, and I fully appreciate that. I'm not mocking somebody who did this. I'm just mentioning this. Load balancers, if you know what you're talking about. And I deal with them on a daily basis, and I do a lot of education and projects with them.
We are sorry.
Huh? I'm not sorry.
I'm sorry for you.
No, I'm not, because they're a kick-ass tool for so many things.
Okay.
But just as an example, the ALB, Advanced Load Balancer, that VMware bought from Avi Networks, has something like 7 different points at which you can manipulate HTTPS headers.
Yes.
When we're talking about points, I'm talking from client to the backend service, 7 points here and then 7 points back.
Yes, but when we're
that's why I said there are things.
But when we are going to the details, and when
this is not actually when you're dealing with load balancers. I'm not joking when I say this. When you're dealing with load balancers, saying this that it has 7 different points at which you can manage stuff. This is not complicated.
But what I wanted to say,
whole other plane of existence.
Yes, but I want to say is that once you start dealing with the regular HTTPS traffic inside the normal enterprise network, changing HTTPS headers is something that happens more or less every couple of milliseconds. So your firewall is going to change it, your input firewall, output firewall is going to change it, your load balancer is going to change it, your applications are going to change it,
login windows,
your
cookies,
local
whatever.
server.
Yeah.
So everybody is going to be dealing with the different versions of the HTTP headers. So
what else is missing here while we're at the topic of that? One fundamental service.
I see it too. There is no routing and firewalling.
No, fundamental service in infrastructure. Authentication is missing.
Okay. Yes.
there is a reason why, but I'm not going to be overly acidist today.
Overly
Yes.
eager. But I think that one of the things is that, and I must say this with complete concentration. I'm not dissing on this.
No.
This is an amazing tool. And I think that the roadmap.sh is one of the amazing things that you can see on the internet, because it enables you to see how complex today's infrastructure world is.
Yes.
And at the same time, I think this is just a start of a discussion that should be made, that should be had.
Exactly.
And sometimes I'm going to say to a new prospective system administrator that he needs to learn Windows. Sometimes I'm going to tell them to learn Linux. Sometimes I'm going to tell them to learn networking, and then start from there. So I think that a roadmap is pretty harsh word for something that should be basically a bulleted list of the different resources that you need to know.
Can I offer a super insane idea?
You always do.
Let's use this roadmap as a starting point. Let's add the things that we think are missing.
Yes.
Let's create our own one.
Okay.
And then let's create 100 episodes about every single box there is on the roadmap.
Okay. I'm completely fine with this. Because this is something that we are doing. I wouldn't call it every day, but some of the things here are the things that we did thousands of times. Some of the things are basically what you did a couple of times, I did a couple of times, because we are not dealing with this kind of services. Nobody is dealing with everything is here on the list.
But that's the whole point. There are many services here that we used millions of times, but
Yes.
there are some that we haven't. This is also going to serve as an education for us.
Yes, I completely agree. It's big. I didn't want this to become a contest on saying.
Me neither. It's just a fresh idea that I have.
Yeah, okay, I'm fine.
Because I like this a lot.
Yeah, I like this a lot, but what I like even more is the idea of trying to get the point across that becoming a DevOps guy is not only a thing of following a roadmap. It's also the ability to be able to understand different technologies at the same time. Mm-hmm. So one day you are going to be learning on how UnionFS works in the Dockers and trying to understand how the actual files are sorted on the disk. And then in the next 15 minutes, you're going to be dealing with the why is your virtual network that you just created not able to route whatever traffic there is to another virtual network that you also created another Docker. And this is something that is the most complicated thing to understand. DevOps by itself, learning DevOps is ADHD inducing.
It is. And it's not only that. It's that and it's OCD inducing.
Okay, you can get along pretty well by embracing the chaos and just embracing the inevitable.
You like the chaos, yeah?
Yes, inevitable terminal death of the universe. But the ADHD part comes from having to skip from topic to topic and trying to understand all of them, because suddenly you're going to be overwhelmed. And then you need to understand when to take a step back and then retry to learn something again.
No, we don't have to do. So my idea wasn't necessarily that we have to create another 100 episodes 1 hour long. We can create shorter videos.
Yes, I'm completely fine.
That's going to be our, let's say, our version of shorts.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this one and call it a day for this episode.
Before you do, I have one more thought to share with you. Do you remember the Cloud for Excel Managers episode?
Yes.
This is a topic for that as well.
Yes, this is the exact opposite.
Yes.
And I wanted to say that I'm going to call it a day for this because we are going to be making a lot of things based on this. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that I want to have, if possible, a discussion. Mm-hmm. So I would like to see opinions of you or opinions of people who are listening to this, because I know that a lot of work went into this. Mm-hmm. I may or may not be completely in agreement with everything that is here, But I must say that I'm amazed that somebody did this.
Yes.
I like the way that the information is organized.
You can actually download that as well.
Yes, because it's on GitHub. It's a GitHub project, so you can work on it. We could do a fork, but yes, and then we could make students work on this free workforce.
Red Hat certified architects, you're going to get some homework.
Yes, so this can be worked on. But anyways, I wanted to say that I have talked enough in this episode.
You think?
Yes.
I don't think that you did. I
think
kind of have a feeling that you have a lot of stuff left to say.
Yes, I think that the problem was that I said that I'm sleepy in the beginning.
You're not anymore.
And yes, so this woke me up.
Oh Lord, that doesn't bode well for me.
And with that being said, thank you for being with us and thank you for listening to the episode of That IT Show. We're going to see you in the next episode. Good luck. I was Yasmin.
And I'm still Vedran, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye-bye.